Good morning. It's Tuesday, September 16th. I'm Teddy, and you are listening to MessyMocha. So go ahead, grab your cup, and let's sip this. It's kind of a mid-morning mocha up. Shout out to the mom, all my other bears, like all the grizzlies and the honey bears. Let's start off with a little morning music. It's called A Morning Breeze. I picked it because, I don't know, I like the melody, and maybe I feel this way today. All right. So, should I just cover maybe some of the top news stories real quick before I get into any, mess? Maybe I can be on this morning for half an hour. Yeah. 11 to 11:30, and we will see how it goes. So, from Associated Press, the top news stories for this morning. Israel has military. They have begun this ground incursion offensive in Gaza City, and thousands of residents are fleeing the area. I'm just going to touch just kind of, what's in the news, what are the headlines, and then I might land on a story that I might want to talk about. I don't know. UN Commission has this inquiry, accuses Israel of genocide in Gaza, urging global action. I mean, all of this is really big news, especially the fact that Israel's military is now on the ground in Gaza City. A lot of people are going to lose their life. What is this going to mean? What does this mean? The first thing I thought about, honestly, when I heard it this morning, I thought about the remaining hostages. That was the first thing that came to mind. All the hostages have not been set free, and now that Israel is on the ground, what is going to happen with, for example, Hamas? How are they going to retaliate? Will any more of the hostages be set free, and or something worse happen? Okay. What else is going on? Robert Redford. I don't know if some of you are old enough to remember him. I remember him. He was an Oscar-winning actor, director, and a Hollywood leading man. Well, he has died. He was 89 years old. He was Hollywood's one of Hollywood's golden boys. He was a liberal activist, and he died in Utah. So what's going on Capitol Hill right now? Live, the FBI Director Patel refuses to address FBI firings while defending his record before Congress. So he's up on Capitol Hill right now. The Senate hearing is going on. I took a look at just a little bit of that this morning. And if there was like a scoreboard, like you see maybe at a football game or baseball game, or, just a scoreboard, it appears that he might be winning so far with his answers. Some others would think that he's not. Yeah. Then the Utah campus where Charlie Kirk was shot provided less security, it's being told, than other venues as he toured the nation. And of course, the suspect is expected in the shooting death of Charlie Kirk. He is likely to face charges today if he hasn't already. It's 11 o'clock, so I haven't looked for the latest on that, but we can look forward to hearing more about it sometime today, I'm sure. The Trump administration joins Republican campaign to police speech in reaction to Kirk's killing. More I'm seeing a lot of people are getting fired for their outcry. On the left, some of the comments are just crossing the line for employers, and they are getting let go. Let's see what else is going on here. I did see a story. Was it in Fox? Yeah, one that leftist meltdown, they're saying. This isn't Fox. Cornel West, I'm sure many of you know him. He's a political activist, well-studied philanthropist. He's I'm going to say he certainly would lead the list of people that I want to hear what he has to say, because he's always phenomenal. He is a really good orator when he speaks, and he outspoken as he is, Cornel West. He had a clash. Oh, like we're surprised. He leaves a debate after he clashed over, listen, left-wing rhetoric and political violence. Now that one seems interesting enough that I'd want to know a little bit more about it. Of course, it has to do with Charlie Kirk's assassination. Let's see what's going on here. Professor Cornel West stormed out of a segment about the political assassination of Charlie Kirk. This was on Piers Morgan Uncensored on yesterday. Kirk's assassination has sparked a nationwide conversation about political violence, in which host Piers Morgan said the rhetoric of the woke left when describing President Donald Trump holds some blame. There is little doubt to me that the constant rhetoric on the left, the woke left, let me be specific to where I think a lot of the blame lies ever since Donald Trump came into power in 2016, has been this relentless use of phrases like the Nazis, fascists about Trump and about Trump supporters. This was said by Morgan. He added that the repeated rhetoric from the progressive left over the past 9 years seeps into the minds of impressionable young people, convincing them it's their responsibility to prevent America from falling to supposed modern day fascists and others. I don't like to, I don't know if you can be banned for, saying Hitler or Nazis. You see how I whisper it? He said this mindset contributed to what happened with Charlie Kirk. So, I believe this was a question by him. Do you agree that this language, this relentless, in my view, woeful misuse, particularly of the word, this is education, Nazi, toward Trump and his supporters, is part of the problem? Morgan asks Cornel West. West responded, well, I think part of the deeper problem, though, Brother Pierce, and he's always polite, is that the organized greed and weaponized hatred and routinized indifference toward the vulnerable has come together in such a way that it has eroded the sources of character information, so that integrity, honesty, decency, and self-critical sensibilities in and of individuals and groups is more and more disappearing. West went on to argue that hatred is promiscuous in that it can be found among any group or political ideology, but argued the current environment is one where such qualities have become lethal. Fellow panelists and Whatever Podcasts co-host Andrew Wilson then challenged West, accusing him of having referred to Trump's administration as a neo-fascist movement. Quoting, yes, indeed, you're absolutely right, West replied, as both began shouting at each other, with West arguing he should be able to make the case on air. After Wilson argued that people sharing rhetoric like that are what got Kirk killed, West denied the accusation, arguing there are such a thing as neo-fascists. West then turned against Morgan, arguing that Morgan was more interested in making money with this panel rather than having a legitimate dialogue, because he was allowing people to interrupt each other. West said that while he sees Charlie Kirk as having been in the image of God, having been made in the image of God, just like any other human being, he objects to how the discussion is being handled. It's a joke, man. It's not worth it, Wes said as he got up from his seat. When he was challenged further about accusations of neo-fascism, Wes replied by citing Kirk's criticism of the legacy of the Civil Rights Act and his criticism of Martin Luther King Jr. and stormed off set. After he left, Morgan argued that it is a farce to quit a debate where we're literally debating about the importance of free speech and being able to listen to each other's opinions. I think there was a line that was drawn by Professor Cornel West. Start talking about Martin Luther King Jr. and other civil rights leaders. And Cornel West, he has been a champion in the civil rights movement. He has very outspoken, but I've always thought of him, even though he says things on his side, it is about public speaking, a discourse. And Cornel West, to me, he seems to be open to always having a dialogue. So when I saw that he walked off the set, I was a little surprised. But there's probably more behind, what happened to cause him, take the mic off and just walk off as a guest. So, all right, there's other things in the news, and of course you could go to you can go to Fox, CNN, Associated Press, the Daily Mail, the Wire. There's just so many that are available to you. All right. Good morning. I see right now Sunset, Plotter, my moderators. Yes, you can email me at unwinewithteddy@gmail.com. Please hit the like on your way in and leave comments in the chat as long as they are respectful and or below the video. So, this morning, because last night I was on late, not too late, but late enough that I didn't get around to it. But I started thinking about Pam. She passed away. But I was thinking about what happened between her and trees. And I was trying to find, I was trying to find at what point, when did it go from they were, Pam had even posted, like a link or sharing videos of trees or saying things, to where it is or had gotten to. All right. So I started searching through emails because I don't always read emails until maybe after the fact, especially if someone's going to send something, like go watch this or this is going on or this. I don't always just stop in the moment because I can't either watch the video or I always say, I'm going to get around to it, and then I forget about it, and life happens, and like all of us, right? So this morning, I thought, let me see if I can search anything. Let me see if anyone has ever sent anything to me about Pam, because like I said, I remember, of course I remember her on panel, and she has her own YouTube channel, but I never really spoke about her that I can, remember. It could just be, in a response to an email. Okay, I'll check this or that out, or like, I don't know. Let's, I just didn't know enough about it, I think, to comment. Yeah, because I don't always, I don't always watch, and I'm not always in the bushes, though people think I am. I'm not. Or if I do watch a video, I kind of skip around. I do. Yeah. So before, let me just do this so I can try to set the tone. Did I pull it up? So I went to Pam's channel, Reshape Your Reality podcast. This is something she said 10 days ago in a post. And I thought, this is worth a read. Yeah, just to the chat. She says, real talk today. Have you ever met someone who seems cold, bitter, and angry at the world, like they have no feelings at all? Sometimes that kind of attitude comes from deep hurt or rejection. But instead of healing, they project their pain as anger, jealousy, or negativity toward others. The truth is, when a person is mad at the world because they feel unloved or unwanted, they become toxic to everyone around them. But behind that tough exterior, there's usually a broken heart that never learned self-love. Here's the real thing, or she said the reality. Hurting people hurt people. Healing starts when we stop seeking validation from others and begin accepting and loving ourselves. Then she asks some questions. What do you think? Do you believe people like this can change? Or do some people stay stuck in their anger forever? Drop your thoughts below. Let's have an honest conversation. And when I saw that, I thought, wow, that was I like the post. I like what she said there because it has meaning. It really does. Of course, I've heard the saying, hurting people hurt people. But she did talk about healing. And she talked about toxicity and a broken heart and whether peoples can change their attitudes, and or just questioning. Cold, bitter, angry. Wonder what was she thinking about, because that's worth, that was I think a good moment in what she was saying to all of us, any of us. Yeah. Can people change? And it's because I was thinking about her this morning, and then, looking for things that a link of her channel had been sent to me. Of course, I had gone to her channel before, but I thought, let me just go back and look at her post, and what can I find as a takeaway. Because some people are brokenhearted right now. Her family obviously is, her friends, her neighbors, people that she knew and loved. I did watch, many of you probably watched some of Kimmy's tribute or announcement. I didn't watch all of it. I did watch parts of it. And then she has since put it on her members only. I did watch, or was watching, at the time when, let's see, who was on the panel? It was Maggie. Of course, Kimmy. Val. Queen Tulsa. I thought there was a fifth person. I thought there was... If you were watching, was there a fifth person on the panel? Yes, DJ. Yes. So at some point, they were all on the panel. The person who is Kimberly's moderator, I thought her name is DJ. Isn't that? Someone is asking. It's her moderator. Thank you. I called her DJ. Let's distinguish. Thank you, Plotter. Simply DJ. Yes, because they're different people, I believe. Of course they are. And so, Maggie and Kimmy and Evangelist Val were up on the panel. I don't know if Simply DJ had joined before. I think she was up there too. And then Tulsa hit the link. I wasn't reading the chat, so I don't remember if Tulsa... Let me see. I don't remember if Kimmy just put the chat out, the link for to come up. I think she did at one point, if you want to come up and say, say something. And of course, has always been very open and generous in that way with her platform. So the link may have just been out there. Platter says, I'm not even commenting on this state of affairs. It was just an observation on my part. I won't get deep into it, but there was so much emotion because it was, at that moment, it was a shock. It was grief. It was, out of respect to Kimmy, just my observation, Kimmy was in a lot of pain. I could just feel it. I could hear it in her voice when she, first came in. It was just, she was devastated with the news. That was her friend. And here she is in deep sadness and deep grief. I mean, really, just at times you had to step away from the mic, just put it on silent and then come back. Because, first of all, for her to deliver that kind of news to her YouTube family was hard. It's hard to deliver that kind of news, but deliver it about your friend. Yes. And I'm going to pause for a moment because I remember hear her, right? She could not deliver the news on the loss of her friend, right? Last September. I'm going to see if anyone's listening. Y'all know, someone put her name in a chat with some doves. We lost Joy. I always said our Canadian friend. You can put their names in the chat because we're talking about our YouTube family and we're talking about, coming and sharing the news on loss. So, McClurk, yes, of course. It's difficult. It was difficult for hear her because my knowledge of it, and I think I can say this, hear her was just on the phone. She was on the phone with McClurk. I think I can say that part without. So just imagine how shocking, devastating it was for her. She couldn't even, she wasn't prepared or to come to the mic. It was that painful. So I say that to say, Kimmy, for her to come, it was difficult, but she did it because she loved her friend and her audience, deserved. And people were saying, don't cry. Tulsa came up like, why are you crying? Like, I don't even know if she had learned what's going on, because when Tulsa showed up, Kimmy was, in crying, and had been crying, and all right, and then she learned. So it was difficult for Kimmy. I can't even imagine, except we've all had losses, right? Lost friend, but no one can necessarily understand what someone else is feeling. They can empathize, we show sympathy, condolences, of course, out of respect. But then I thought, to try to move a person along so quickly, just stop, breathe, and allow Kimmy. This is what I was thinking when I was watching. Allow her. Just give her a moment. This is my impression. Y'all know how I am. Allow a person to grieve. Don't necessarily try to rush the tears away. That's part of grief. You go through stages. You go through stages of grief. And I get it that, people were trying to, they were asking a lot of questions and doing a lot of things. And I thought, some of it was kind of invasive. It's just my own take, because it was just too much. All at once, just a lot of, this point, different, angles. And I just thought, come on, guys. Can we just, in the moment, let's just stay with Pam and stay with Kimmy. Yeah. Can we just stay with that? Because it was only, a broadcast is only an hour or so. I don't know how long it was. I'm sure more than an hour. And she was, gracious enough to allow people a space to, give their condolences and say what they remember, whatever it was, right? Good things, or support, and or for her. But then it took a turn. The atmosphere shifted. It was like, ooh, reel this in. Again, it's because it was emotionally charged. And people have different experiences with grief, how they handle it, and how they watch others grieve and put their experiences onto that person as well. Because we all do, right? We see it through our lens. So we could also be grieving. If we've had a loss, when we see someone else who has a loss, it's going to take us back, especially if it's fresh. I heard Maggie mention she had, dealt with several recent losses. So she wanted to be there for Kimmy, but she was also experiencing some of, reliving some of the grief of her own because it was so very fresh. People go through the stages of grief in different ways. Some people, when it happens, some people can't even cry. Did you know that? Some people that you would think they can't, and they were close, they can't. Mm-hmm. Not even at the funeral. Not even at the funeral. And there might be people that say, well, why? This person didn't even cry. No. You don't know how a person deals or handles grief. Some people are very outwardly. And it pierces their heart in a way that is unimaginable. And their grief, some people go on for years. Yeah. And then people started asking like these, questions, medical questions, and do this and do that. And I just thought, there's a lot, guys. And some of it could have been instilling. People don't realize questions such as, talking about health so openly and talking about someone else's at a time like that they're dealing with grief. They can be overcome, but they can also, that can cause, people don't realize this, it can heighten a person's anxiety. It can heighten a person's actual anxiety and fear. Yeah. Especially if someone is, your friend, they're close in age. Yes, it's just, there was so much going on. Yes, we all have family members. I am the age that I am. I'm older than I'm sure most of you are. I know I am. I think I am. My listeners, yeah. And there's questions that we all have. And we all deal with it. Yes. I don't want to say anything really more on that because I don't want to offend anyone. No. Mm-mm. But I just made an observation, when Tulsa came up and you could see there was a little bit of a little back and forth between her and Val, because it's like you can wear your emotions on your sleeve. They were right there. There was something that cut to the core. And at that moment, Tulsa just spoke her truth. This is how she felt at that moment. And it went back and forth. But eventually, let's see who dropped first. Oh, you see, that's because I don't have the video. I'm trying to remember. I believe then Tulsa dropped down, or was it Val that dropped down first? Oh my goodness. Eventually they both dropped. I think Tulsa dropped and then came back. Or was it Val dropped, then Tulsa dropped? And now you see how I can't remember, because there was just so much going on at that moment. But I think in the end, on Kimmy's broadcast, people were able to bring it, There was another person that came up. I missed that. I really only caught, there was someone who was, I thought, had a moment of prayer or silence. And I think maybe that helped to bring it in. I'm not sure. When I came back, when I was kind of watching at the end, and I thought, all right, that's good. I'm hoping that people, tried later to fix it. And of course, for the host, for the platform, to Kimmy, out of respect for Kimmy. See, it was out of respect for Kimmy, because it was her platform. That's what I was, we always have to keep that in mind. When I started off, I'm talking about, you have the friend who comes and has to make this announcement. So at times, it's, while we have personal things that we want to express and get off our, the moment was for Kimmy and the grief of the passing of her friend Pam. Wherever people were in the spectrum of agreeing, disagreeing, all of that, was to just, stay focused on others at that time. Yeah. But I'm trying to put it contextually. When that happens, it's shock and grief, and we're all experiencing it. From explosive to, some people literally can't even form words, can't even talk. Literally, they shut down. They don't, some people, it's just even too hard, no matter how close the person is. They can't even go to the service, memorial service or anything. So it runs the feelings. And everybody actually goes through stages. We all do. It's just where are you in the stage of it? And yeah, we were at the very beginning. Kimmy was at the very beginning, and she's going to be grieving this for in private, in her moments. Yeah. So I could actually say more. I could. But I wanted to read that from Pam and just say a few words more on it. And it does show how And I've said this before, how fragile life is. I've said this too. It can happen to any of us. We don't know. So it does pay to if differences can be resolved, they don't always get resolved in the moment. You got to go through the stages, is what I'm getting at. Some take legal. They're that difficult to deal with. So, yeah. I know for me, I want resolution. So, yeah. So you have a beginning and you have an end. Yeah. And you go through the process. Right? But if there's any truth to any of that did people make amends? Did they say they were sorry? Did they take accountability? Did we find out? So I started out by asking that question, going back and looking through. And I mentioned trees and I mentioned Pam. And I came across this email. Let me see if I can just find it. So this was back last year in July 2024. Would it be around that time? So what was happening around that time, during that time with Pam or trees or, anything going on the platform? I think this was Pam that we're talking about, the Pam that passed away, and trees, So this individual was telling me in this email, because I've never really responded or did anything about it, or asked about it, or talked about it, but now I see it. So this person was telling me about Pam, a content creator. Is she considered to be in the Jack sector? But she was just giving me a little, background about her knowing Mr. Robinson. I'm going to pause for a moment. Are we talking about the same Pam? I'm talking about Shanquella Robinson's father. That Pam was familiar and had been in touch with Mr. Robinson. So just stop me here if this isn't the same Pam. I'm just going to pause and look at some of your comments. Because I'm approaching the top of the hour. All right, so I've gotten a yes on that. So, all right. See if I can go back to it. And I'm going to just kind of put it in my own words, but stay with the flow of it. So this person, again, telling me about Pam, content creator, someone who knew Mr. Robinson. And she was, or he was, because I don't know. Yeah. I don't. Not exactly. Yeah. Wait a minute. So I start telling this story and then I get Let me just make sure I turn my phone down. Okay, let's try this again. So apparently, this content creator, Pam, who we're talking about, had already a relationship on some level with Mr. Robinson, Shanquella Robinson's father. And she interviewed him. The timeline I'm not certain of, but this individual let me know that it was prior to Danielle having interviewed him. Okay. Also talked about losses that Pam had experienced, which I was totally unfamiliar with. That again, I get emails and I just don't know everything, so I could sit on it and not make comments about things because I just don't know what I don't know, and yeah. But apparently that was a point that she could share and bond with Mr. Robinson's, or have empathy and or relate to him because of it. So apparently there was a phone call that was made while Pam was on station head. And the issue was whether or not the phone call had been recorded. And that Pam and Mr. Robinson, they had a genuine friendship. Okay. At that time, Pam and Trees, they were good. Yeah. And then somehow subsequent to this person is saying, and again, this would be their opinion, because people were familiar. Danielle had been, reporting on Shanquella as well. But it would follow in the sequence that, again, I'd have to try to look through these videos and find them to see. But this individual seemed to think that it had an effect on Danielle, because Pam had this, what appears to be genuine, friendship or connection with Mr. Robinson, because she had interviewed him, right? So following that, let's see, I'm just looking at this, put in my own words. Yeah. It's being alleged that she contacted Mr. Robinson, I'm talking about Danielle, to say that Pam had recorded him. There's a little, not a little, but there's more to this. But then it started a little tension there, and then it got messy, and yeah. Who else is close or was close? Now, see, I don't want to get too messy. Let me just. The thing is, you always have to go back to the beginning if you can. Go back to what the underpinning of things. How did things start off? And how did they get out of, to the point where they are? What truths were being told, what people were saying or running back, because right now we can speak on this hindsight 2020 without all of the information, but just understanding how human behavior is. How human behavior is. People talk about jealousy, that everyone's jealous of them. Are there other people around that individual to that? I gotta have a whole conversation about this. It's 12 o'clock. I said I was gonna be finished. Did that cause like some tension between others that then remembered? And on this platform we have people that have allegiance to certain people that say they don't want to pick sides, but they do. That they can be unbiased, but they're not. That can start things based on things that aren't factual. And can do the bidding of others, like get a battery put in their back. Yeah, there are a lot of Energizer bunnies. Can I say that? Can I say Energizer bunnies? Because everybody knows the Energizer bunny. I mean, I'm talking about the commercial. With the battery and the drum, and beat the drum, and they just keep going and going and going and going. You read between the lines. Yeah. Beating the drums until it hurts. Beating the drums and just wearing just wearing it out. Because if you've ever seen the Energizer bunny commercials, any of them, if you remember one in particular, Energizer bunny is just, boom, 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 and then he just slumps over, and the aim of the commercial is they have this one bunny and another one, and they're comparing them, right? But the Energizer bunny keeps going and going and going. And that's how they were able to market and sell Energizer batteries, to their main competitor, I think, which would be Duracell batteries. Because they're all batteries, right? Some just last a little bit longer. Just read between the lines. Keep, beating the drum, just beating it up, just beating it up. So, Just think of any dash lines, dotted lines. Yeah. Because now I can sit back and say, think about this and see why, some of it you can explain and some of it I can't explain because I'm either new to the story and say, why the emotion? What set off a person? Is it really separate? Or is it, residue from somebody else? Yeah, because you can get residue on you from someone else. Junebug says Pam had direct contact to him. Okay. And of course, yes, Shanquella Robinson's story is a tragic one. Absolutely made national spotlight. There were marches and rallies. Yeah. Some people think it should have been even louder, and some of the story, buried on the back page, felt it didn't get the kind of highlight because one, it happened in, Mexico, right? And so just getting her back to the States and then questioning people who were said to be involved, or at least, they needed to question all of these people. Yeah. So if it looks like a person is competing for the spotlight or stepping on somebody's area, that's not gonna make them feel so special anymore. Maybe somebody's getting some shine, some exposure. So what do they have to do? They have to do something about it. Oh, we can talk about something right now. Maybe for another day or night, but I think overall, just even if you come into a situation and it's totally brand new, like I'm doing for some, because some people I just don't know the backstory. Yeah. But I can see some common themes that we all can see in just dealing with how people are humans, being human. Yeah. More can be said. I didn't necessarily put a finishing bow on top of this box. I just started, wrapping it up. Putting the paper on it. Haven't put the bow on it yet. Somebody may want to snatch the bow off if I put the bow on the box. Yeah. But this is YouTube, someone said, and people get into beefs, and at the end of the day, yeah, people they really don't mean it. That's what seems that way. Oh. When your mind can be at peace and you know that you have treated a person in a decent way, then the grief that you're feeling for the loss of someone, it isn't the guilty grief. It's grief for the loss, not the guilty grief. I don't know if I've ever said that before, guilty grief. Can you have guilty grief? That would be a good question. So maybe I shouldn't say guilty grief. It just, I don't even, but you can sure feel guilty because guilt just shows up. I'm going to see if there's anything to that. Apologies made, yeah. Promises made, promises kept. No, I'm just thinking of something. I type something and I'm waiting for a response, or Google, or looking up a word or two. I didn't know. So I was correct. There is such a thing as guilty grief. I never looked it up like that. I just said guilty grief. So there is such a thing as guilty grief. And it's a concept that comes up both in psychology and in everyday lived experiences. So what is it? Guilty grief is when someone mourns a loss while also carrying feelings of guilt, either about what they did, didn't do, or should have done differently. So you have these dueling emotions, really. Instead of, think of it like that, instead of experiencing grief in a straightforward way, that's what I was trying to say. You just have grief before even looking this up. Instead of experiencing grief in a straightforward way, which is sadness or longing or missing the person, the grieving person feels weighed down by self-blame, regret, or responsibility. And the common situations would be if there was some unfinished business, feeling guilty for arguments, harsh words, or unresolved conflict before a person passed away. Didn't resolve it. Didn't finish right. That's where the guilt, this guilty grief comes in. Wondering why. Why am I alive and they're not? Wow. Especially when this happens in, let's say, an accident or a tragedy or a situation. A caregiver's guilt, maybe feeling like you didn't do enough to prevent a loss or second guessing decisions. Indirect guilt, feeling guilty because you were absent, you didn't call enough, or you didn't show enough love before it was too late. Hmm. Wow. There's a lot that that can be talked about when just talking about dealing with grief. Yeah. But I'm talking about guilty grief here. Yeah. It's never perfect. No, you can't can you really tell a person how to grieve? No. Gotta let them grieve and support them. Yeah. So again, I just called it guilty grief. I looked it up. There is guilty grief. Um, it's sometimes it's wrapped in self blame, but you can work through it. Yeah, their acknowledgement. Yeah. Also, just because you're feeling guilty doesn't necessarily mean you're guilty. I just want to quickly say that since I use that term, guilty grief. Okay. Remorse, yeah. Yeah. And people might be experiencing that as well right now. You can email me at unwinewithteddy@gmail.com. Join me sometime later. I do plan to come back. It is just after, it's 12:17. That's going to do it for me. I hope you enjoyed your morning mocha. It's now the afternoon, and gotta get busy and finish up some things because afternoons get away quickly for me, or go quickly. Yeah, that's it. Please hit the like on your way out. Biggest bear hugs to all the grizzlies and the honey bears. Thanks for watching. Until next time, I'm Teddy. Have a great Tuesday.